Hi everyone, join me in today's video as I get some practice in drawing skulls and then use alcohol markers to add value. I was actually having a little bit of an art block, which is why I was doing these skulls. I find that whenever I'm really struggling with a more creative drawing or creative artwork or compositions, I just revert back to doing studies. And within the last year, I mostly revert back to either perspective studies or portrait studies. And I just love learning more about these topics, reading books, learning anatomy, all that. I feel like it always kind of resets me and also helps level up my skill. And I just get a little break from having to be as creative, if that makes sense. I'm currently in portrait studying mode, watching lots of videos and reading and things like that to try to improve my portraits. Maybe the next couple videos will be about that. Drawing skulls in different positions is a really great way to get practice with the structure of the face and just knowing what's going on beneath the surface when you're drawing a portrait. I think it's really great if you have like a physical model of the skull you can look at, but if you don't have that, I really like using Sketchfab, which is a website that has tons and tons of 3D models you can move around and use as references. I think some of them you have to purchase and download to use, others are free. It's just up to the creator of the 3D model. I will link below the specific skull that I used. I didn't see anything about needing to pay for the one that I used. I think it should be fine that I am linking it in here. I will also put a screenshot of like the angle I was looking at the skull with when I draw that specific one, so you can kind of see what I was looking at. But I love using Sketchfab, especially if I want to draw something that I can't see in real life. Like for example, I was drawing an octopus and I wanted to have like the tentacles going a specific way, but I like couldn't find a reference to show that, and obviously I don't have an octopus with me in real life. So I just looked at tentacle models on Sketchfab and I could manipulate them to be in the right orientation that I wanted, and that was really helpful. They also have Loomis heads on there, and that is really helpful as well. I really like to use that as a teaching aid when I'm teaching my students to draw portraits. That way they can kind of check their work on their Loomis heads as they do it and see if they're placing all of their guidelines correctly. I used to really avoid drawing faces, honestly, just people in general. When I first started drawing, I really liked doing still lives or drawing plants or animals, pretty much just anything other than people. And a lot of this was just because I really struggled with it. I'd never taken the time to learn how to do it correctly, never had taken a class or learned about the Loomis or Riley method or even basic facial proportions. It was a big area of insecurity for me when I first started. I felt like if I was an artist, but I couldn't like do portraits at all, I was failing, which I don't think is necessarily true, but it was an area that I felt insecure about and really wanted to get better in. It's funny because some people are very, very comfortable drawing faces. Like I would have students who they just love doing portraits. They would get really stressed or have a hard time if I would have them like draw an animal or other things other than portraits, which is funny to me because I was just always like the exact opposite. I do find that the more that I improve my skills in doing portraits, I do really enjoy them. It's kind of like a puzzle. When you get it right, it is just so satisfying. Portraits can definitely be tricky. One of the main reasons for that is just because it's so obvious if even like the smallest thing is off. Like if I draw a flower and a petal is off, like no one's gonna know. But if you draw a face and the nose is too far to the left, like people will be able to tell. So I started learning a little bit, practicing portraits here and there, but I really dove in a couple years ago when I was teaching a portrait section in my drawing class for my high school students, because I felt like I really needed to know what I was talking about if I was going to teach it. I did have basic knowledge, but I just not tons of practice since it's not what I spent a lot of my time doing. But that's the best part about teaching, it pushes you to get better. My favorite way to learn it is kind of how I taught it as well. I would start with the basic proportions of the face and the Loomis method and just doing tons of Loomis heads, and then going into depth into the anatomy and structure of each facial feature. And then once, we kind of had the facial features down, then how to place them on the face and kind of put it all together. Then to go even further, I really like the Riley abstraction to kind of take it to the next level of likeness and realism in drawings. Personally, I feel like doing it in these steps is what worked well for beginners. Now I would probably add in like some skull drawings into my curriculum as well, but unfortunately I'm not teaching this upcoming year, so maybe in the future. Here's a little view of what all the skulls look like finished on the page, and now I'm going to go in with alcohol markers. You can see I'm using these two colors. I'm pretty much just using that lighter blue color, and then the lavender mist I'm just using for the very darkest parts. I wanted to talk a little bit about the different methods for learning the face. Top three that I think of are Loomis method, Riley abstraction, and the Asaro head. I've really only worked with Loomis and Riley, so I can't give really much feedback on how helpful the Asaro head is. If you've studied it or used it, I would love to hear from you in the comments, your opinion on it. Just to give a little bit of background for those that don't know, the Loomis head is a method created by Andrew Loomis, and you can find it in his book, Drawing the Head and Hands. And this method is great for beginners because it uses really simple shapes to map out the areas of the face and just create a base structure with average proportions. You obviously have to adjust it for your subject because not everyone has average proportions, but it's really helpful just to kind of get you started. It's not super helpful for detail on like drawing features or on the planes of the face, so I felt like I kind of got a little bit stuck once I had worked with the Loomis head quite a bit, so that's when I kind of moved on to the Riley abstraction or Riley method. The Riley method was created by Frank Riley, but we don't actually learn about it from him specifically, but from students he had. He taught this method for like 30 years at the Art Students League, but he never published a book. So instead we learned from his students. There's one book, Mastering Drawing the Human Figure by I think it's Jack Ferragoso, where he kind of covers it. This method uses rhythms that connect different parts of the face together. It just kind of helps with taking your drawing to the next level and having a more natural flow in likeness. Personally, I don't use like every single rhythm. Maybe as I get more into it and practice with it more, I will use more of it. But right now, I mostly just use like the muzzle lines, the frontal arch, the brow muscle, like just some of those rhythms that he has in there are really helpful for me, but I don't like draw every single one on when I'm doing a portrait. The Asaro head is a sculpture that simplifies the human head into flat planes. So it seems to be really helpful with studying how light and shadow fall on the head. But like I said, I've not really worked with it much. I'm sure that I will in the future, like as I continue to study and learn more about portraits, I'm sure that I will get there and kind of practice with it a little bit, but I haven't really at this point. I want to share some of my favorite resources with you that I like to use for studying the human head and portraits, and I will make sure to link everything below in the description. So obviously you can start with Andrew Loomis's book, Drawing the Head and Hands. That's a good place to start for the Loomis method. But if you're not as much of a book reader, you can find tons of YouTube videos on the Loomis method. But I do really like Proco as a place to start. They have a playlist called Draw the Head from Any Angle, which has a lot of good Loomis method stuff. And then another one called How to Draw Facial Features, and that's another great playlist. I use pretty much all of the facial feature anatomy videos in my classes, and they give just a really good overview of like the anatomy you need to know as an artist, because obviously the anatomy we need to know as artists is not as intense as like a medical professional would need. I will also link below the 3D rendering of a Loomis head that I like to use on Sketchfab that I mentioned before. As for the Riley abstraction, there aren't really as many videos I feel like that I love, but there is Mastering Drawing the Human Figure, which I mentioned by Jack Vergasso. I will also link a live stream from Court Jones. He's a caricature artist, but in this video, he's not doing a caricature, but he uses the Riley method, and I feel like it's really helpful to kind of watch how he does it. Last but not least, one of my all-time favorite YouTubers for learning portraits is Bradwin Jones. I just love how he intertwines both the Loomis and Riley method, and just the way he constructs the head, it really makes sense to me. I also just think he explains it well. That's maybe why it makes so much sense. Sometimes I feel like when you're learning these methods, like maybe you're watching a video of the Loomis method, it's hard to translate into like an actual finished portrait. I love watching Bradwin Jones' YouTube channel because he like does the full thing. So you can kind of see like where he starts all the way through to the finished portrait. And he also talks through it like so well. He's very, very detailed in like what he's thinking as he's drawing and saying that out loud. So I cannot recommend his videos enough. I feel like when I started watching them, it really helped things kind of click for me. Some of the exercises that I like to do to improve my skills is doing just quick basic studies, laying in the basic shape of the face, where the facial features go, but really just spending 10 or 20 minutes and then moving on to the next one. Especially in the beginning, I find that this is really helpful because in the beginning, you might not have great skill in creating that like basic structure of the face. So if you spend 2 hours on a portrait, you're really going to be spending just so much time like moving around the eye and the nose, and when really you probably didn't even get the basic structure correct. I feel like it's better to just kind of do quick drawings, and every once in a while you can do a longer one, but just getting like tons of practice in the beginning instead of just doing like completely finished portraits. I don't know, that was a little bit more helpful for me. I also like to do studies of each facial feature, like a complete page of eyes or noses or anything like that, and kind of refresh the anatomy. And a lot of times with drawing the facial features, you're just kind of trying to find what like your favorite techniques are for drawing it. A lot of times I would struggle with drawing the mouth, and I realized it was because I was emphasizing like the outline of the lips too much. And instead, if I kind of focus on like the shadow or the corner of the lips or the corners of the mouth, that made it look a lot more realistic. Just kind of getting little like tips and tricks like that. Obviously, I also like doing skull studies, which you can see here. And I like to follow along with YouTube videos. So for example, with Brad Jones videos, especially if he links his reference, I like to draw along with him, and that way I can kind of look at the reference at the same time and kind of see like what he's thinking as he does it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If there's anything else you would like to see from me, feel free to leave it in the comments below. At this point, I'm pretty much just creating videos on whatever my current art fixation is, but I'm always open to other ideas. I will see you guys in the next one.